Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 52A DFL Candidate Forum. I want to thank our three candidates who are here today. I'm going to be really brief, just so we can get to the questions as quick as possible. T is going to be hosting this forum. Um, I am going to be assisting. We have agreed upon rules beforehand. We're going to do opening statements, a few questions, and then closing statements. The order of opening statements is Laura, Christus, Janine. And T, when you're ready, do you want to go ahead and take
Sure,
things away?
sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Curtis, for the introduction. I will start our candidate forum by first acknowledging and thanking everyone for being here, but also acknowledging what we are experiencing here in Minnesota with the recent killing of Renee Good, who was killed, as we all know, by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And here we are again, Minneapolis and Minnesota on the federal spotlight. And so we know that there are many of us that are angry, sad, disappointed, feeling hopeless. Like, what can we do? And so Curtis and I, talked about this yesterday. We don't want to start the candidate forum without first acknowledging and respecting the life lost in the family, those who she is leaving behind. Many of us don't know her, but we are all part of this. We are all part of this. And as I laid in bed this week, I'm dealing with my own illness, feeling like, what can I do? What can I do? More than just showing up. What can I do? And it resonates with me as we go through these trainings. They had the whistles, and ICE had the guns. So I know many of us are asking, how do we still show up and support our neighbors and support our friends and support our community? And so as we think about those things, we're going to go ahead and move forward with this candidate forum, and we're going to ask our candidates first, as you introduce yourself. The first question will be, how do you balance the concerns related to the criminal justice system in the light of the immigration that's happening right now, particularly in the light of the federal ICE agents? How do you balance the concerns related in criminal justice with the rights of immigrant communities regarding in light of the federal ICE agents here? And so we will start with introductions. Curtis, I believe you already gave the list of who's going to start, so I will turn that over.
Yes, I believe the first was Laura.
And I would just also just remind everyone, you will not be able to ask questions. However, Curtis and I will monitor the chat. You can put your questions in the chat. We will have a timer for the candidates. Curtis, I believe, is going to set up that timer so that everyone has the right amount of time. The other rules that we just want to make sure that we explain, that if there's a question that you want to ask the candidates, please make sure that you ask the candidates in a way that is for all candidates. And if there's a statement that is directly towards a candidate, then that candidate has about 30 seconds for a rebuttal. And so we just want to make sure those rules are also outlined in the beginning of this candidate forum. But I'm sure, like many of you, I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone. So I'm going to be quiet and turn it over to the first candidate. Thank you.
Can I just clarify quickly? Because we were told we'd have 2 minutes for an opening statement. So
Yes.
I'm not planning to address that question in this statement necessarily as such. And I just wanted to make sure that the other candidates were also aligned.
Well, if you could do that, Laura, we're going to ask you to do your opening statement and then address the question before we go to the next candidate.
All in 2 minutes?
No, you have two
Oh,
minutes for your opening statement, and then you can answer the question in 2 minutes.
perfect. Thank you. I
Okay.
hope
Thank you
this
for
helps
that
for other
clarification.
Sorry
candidates
for the
as well.
confusion.
Yeah, I
It's
apologize for
okay.
that. It's a great question.
Yep. Okay. Do you have the timer ready, Curtis?
Yes, do you see the timer?
No, not yet.
Mm-mm.
Do you
I
see
see
Okay.
it
the?
really, it's
All
not
right.
as big as when it was you and I,
It's
Curtis,
tiny.
yesterday.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right. Well, it's going, so I'm going. Good morning. Thank you very much to everyone who's made time to be here today. And I think right now we can really all agree on at least one thing, and that is that showing up matters, especially in moments like this. My name is Laura Meyer, and I am running for the Minnesota House. I have always believed that leadership starts with showing up, not just when it's convenient or when it's comfortable, but whenever there's work that needs to be done. And that's been true my whole life. As a kid, it meant volunteering through Girl Scouts and working with people with disabilities, learning early that leadership is about service, not status. As an adult, it has meant standing up for teachers before my own kids were even in school, showing up when our district faced school closures, and attending city council meetings week after week so that neighbors weren't treated like an afterthought in decisions that affect their lives. It's meant building real relationships through the Rotary, the Chambers of Commerce, PTOs, the League of Women Voters, Egan Fun Fest, and as the chair of the Economic Development Commission. Because progress doesn't come from slogans, it's built through hard work. I'm a small business owner, and I live in a reality-based world where outcomes matter and excuses don't fix broken problems. That's the mindset I bring to public service. Practical, grounded, and focused on getting things done. And now I will acknowledge the moment we're in right now. This week, our community is grieving the murder of Renee Good, and many of our neighbors are living in fear as ICE escalates their tactics. This is happening right here, but it's also why I'm running, because leadership means showing up when people are scared, when rights are under threat, and when silence would be easier. And I will always show up and choose to act anyway. And shifting, pivoting to your question regarding concerns about criminal justice system, I guess I would like to use my time to point out that to me, I don't consider, in chats with my friends this week, people have brought up the concern of, well, aren't people breaking the law if they are not here under the precise terms of the law? And I personally have a lens on this that is that we have a broken system of immigration, and it's not an accident. This is not accidentally broken so that it's hard for people to get here. It's hard for people to comply with the rules, and it's hard for people to achieve citizenship or legal status. That's on purpose. And that is because it benefits the economy and it benefits employers, because then there's a whole class of people who will work for a lot less and who will ask for a lot less. And it keeps the profits the absolute highest and the wages the absolute lowest for all of us. So I think that a major factor of this is not about criminal justice. We don't see ICE acting in criminal justice. We see them acting in retaliation to Minnesotans.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Next candidate, is that Janine?
The next candidate was Christos.
Christos, thank you.
Thank you, Curtis, and to our hosts and our fellow Burnsville and Eagan residents who are tuning in this morning, and to my parents, especially for watching the kids today. I really hope it's going okay with them. I am Christos Jensen, and I am also seeking the DFL endorsement for the State House in our District 52A. I am running for Minnesota House for children, families, and our future. I'm ready to bring a new energy as a legislator to St. Paul, to show up, to listen, to work hard, to ensure that Eagan, Burnsville, and Minnesota can grow and thrive. What gets me out of bed in the morning is the idea that we can reform our systems, provide better, responsive service to our citizens and to our neighbors, and to create the community we hope to see. I've also shared with many of you, I have a very big character flaw. I'm instinctively drawn to areas where the hardest decisions need to be made, where the most work needs to be done, and where the process itself at many times seems the most broken and hopeless. It doesn't sound like a great area to be, but that's what I'm drawn to. And yet out of that, in an age of cynicism, I believe that hope, integrity, and hard work can create magic in those areas, and it can be the antidote to our times. With open hearts and open minds, I believe that we can build relationships and find consensus that will lead to solutions that reform our systems and work for our residents. This has led me to serve as Assistant County Attorney and Manager under John Choi for the last 10 years, as a union steward for almost 8 years, as a co-chair of the Minnesota County Attorneys Association Juvenile Law Committee, and legislative outreach person. My wife, Melissa, and I, we have two wonderful kids who are ages 7 and 9, and we're also very involved in this district that we love. I serve as the chair of the Egan Advisory Planning Commission, as our district representative on the Met Council Land Use Advisory Commission, and as an often sunburned coach on our local soccer and baseball fields. My wife leads our SD 52 work, and thank you for your time this morning.
And Christos, are you, for the second part of the question, did you want me to repeat the question or did you have the question, the first question?
I'm ready to go to that, T, if I may.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. And I notice, as Laura had said, it's in the context of law enforcement, and law enforcement is something that I know well, having worked in county attorney's offices for nearly 20 years. Everybody in our community deserves to be safe and secure. I work in child welfare. Yesterday, I spent most of the day and the days before responding to numerous calls, trainings, and planning with social workers and others about the impacts of ICE actions on the vulnerable children and families we serve. We have children who are being dropped off at daycare and parents who are taken during the day, and the parents not returning to pick up the kids at the end of the day. We have residents, neighbors, employees, and business owners who are terrified to leave the house, and for good reason, because they are being targeted and hunted by ICE presence in our streets. Commerce in some communities is coming to a standstill. I think I've been working with our social workers and in my job and support planning for access to food, to medical care, to health care, to documentation for children and families, to legal counsel, court proceedings, and ultimately survival for our children. Our staff are stretched thin, and we all feel broken by the events that have happened in our communities. And yet, this is the time where we find strength in each other. We have to stand up for each other. I have never been able to stand bullies, and I think that's what the federal government is doing, is trying to bully our communities. It's an attempt to stoke fear and intimidation at every turn. And we need to meet that with law-abiding resilience, truth, and vigorous advocacy. This is our country, too.
Sorry, is that sound from the timer?
Yes.
Okay, I'll try to stop it before it does that.
I love the sound. It makes me happy.
Okay, the next is Janine.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak with all of you this morning. It is truly an honor to ask for your support. My name is Janine Hudson, and I'm applying to work for you in 52A. What is most important in representing you is I will be taking unpaid leave to do this job so that I can be in St. Paul every day to serve each and every one of you. I was born and raised in Mankato. I lived in foster care in the Blue Earth County group home. At the tender age of 15, I left home and vowed never to return to the system. I graduated from high school, married, and had 2 children. I found myself a single parent at the tender age of 22. Without government assistance, I never would have graduated from college, and I would not be sitting here today. Currently, I am the mother of 5 adult children and 3 grandchildren. I also have 3 extra bonus children. I began my journey in politics in 1983. I was part of the young DFLers in high school. I've been a precinct chair, treasurer, and later the chair of the Wadena County DFL. Currently, I'm a vice chair on the CD2 and the State Central Committee, along with my eldest daughter, Jessica. For employment, I have worked in social services since 1995 in the area of child protection, mental health, homelessness, and am currently financial services. I understand how fraud happens and how to prevent it going forward. St. Paul needs someone who has a grasp of how social services functions. Laws need to look at the practical application, not just theory. My aunt lived in Egan since 1965. I used to visit there as a small child. When I moved to the Twin Cities, there was no other place I wanted to live. My middle son lives in Burnsville and my youngest in Egan. This is my forever home. I want to serve the citizens of 52A in the same manner I serve citizens in my job. If you want more information about me, please go to my website, hudsonforhouse.org, or visit me next Saturday. I'll be at the Burnsville Library from 12 to 2. Thank you. Now you want the second part, a little more complicated. I work at social services, as I've said, and our janitor's husband was just deported this week. And I see people coming in all the time who are desperate. We need to get the federal government to do what Obama did for the DACA. I have a coworker who was a DACA, now is a citizen. My son-in-law came to this country legally. He's now a citizen. His mother's a citizen, and some of his family. When we have people who are here that are undocumented, they're exploited. I have a client that came in who makes $6 an hour because they pay her a salary to work at a restaurant. We need to be able to take people who've been here and we need to give them at least a work permit so that they won't be exploited. And that has to come in Washington. The only thing that we can do that I have come up with is we need to elect Democrats, send them to Washington so that they can take over the House and Senate and control some of the things that Trump is doing. Trump has taken away Liberians' ability to be here. They were lawfully here and they just ripped them all away. These things are unacceptable. And we can't do anything until we change those laws. And the state doesn't have any control. The governor doesn't have any control. Mayor Fry doesn't have any control. It's the federal government. So let's work hard to get those people to Washington.
Thank you. Thank you all. Great responses. I'm sure many of us probably have some follow-up questions. So this question may lead a little bit. We're still going to stay on criminal justice and immigration for this next question. And then I'll turn it over to Curtis for the next question. What is your stance on the involvement of ICE in local law enforcement in enforcement? How do you plan to protect immigrants from deportation in Minnesota? And I think this time we can rotate. I know we started off with Laura first, but maybe this time we can go to Christoph, then Janine, and then Laura. Christos, I'm sorry.
Thank you, T. As we said, this is the government at this point, the federal government is coming into our communities and they're not making us more safe. Operation Metro Surge, if that was the goal of this operation to make us safe, that is not happening and they have failed. What we see instead is we see a destabilizing of our communities. I would support others, many of you have also supported some of our local rapid response groups through churches and through community organizations. I would encourage you to support organizations like Copal and Indivisible that have been very involved in this work. I would reach out to your local law enforcement folks. That's what I am intending to do. There is an open house this week with our new chief of police in Egan that I intend to go to. And I think that we all need to show up for our neighbors. There's a lot of food distribution happening. Again, I'm working in my job with social workers every day who are helping coordinate to support families, vulnerable families, and that's something that we can all do to resist. We need to make this. Operation Metro Surge wants us to become violent. That is the goal. We cannot take that bait. We need to protest peacefully. We need to stand for our values and support those around us and make it so uncomfortable that ICE needs to leave. Unfortunately, the federal government does have jurisdiction in this country, and yet that does not mean that they have jurisdiction to violate the law. And I fully support a local investigation of what happened with Renee Good and to have our law enforcement look into and examine the evidence. I think we need to hold folks accountable, and we're here to do that the best we can.
Thank you. Next is Janine.
This is a complicated issue because the power, as we've talked about, is all with the federal government. They have the power to bring ICE into our community. The good thing about that is a few years ago, they raided a restaurant really just down the street from me, managed to get rid of the drugs that were going out the back of the restaurant, managed to close down the restaurant because they were hiring undocumented people and paying them virtually nothing. So that's the piece that we want to continue. This intimidation, this terrorism, this is all done by Donald Trump. This isn't, every administration has deported people. Every administration has had ICE involved, but not like this. And the only thing that we can do is peacefully protest. I watched a little bit in horror on Thursday while I was working from home as people are pushing ICE agents and they're spraying them and they're beating them up. That's not going to solve our problem. We have to stand with, I don't think Martin Luther King, march, walk, peacefully do what we need to do, because that's going to show this country that we're not these violent, horrible, crazy people that some people are portraying us to be. So let's do it peacefully. Let's try to get the Democrats in Washington. And that's the only way that we're going to change and stop the craziness that's going on.
Thank you. Laura?
Well, here is where I think you will see my personal working style come out, because I am direct and I am progress and impact oriented. So it's not okay to trample basic constitutional rights and due process. It's not okay. What's been happening is not okay. And while the Minnesota legislature can't rewrite the federal immigration laws, we can absolutely stand up in effective ways to protect people who live and work here. We can strengthen statewide standards that clearly separate what our actual police and public safety groups can do so that they don't have to support the work of these federally directed criminals in our community. We can ensure access to legal counsel when people are detained. We can protect state and local data from being used for immigration surveillance or targeted enforcement. People are being kidnapped off of our streets. These are our friends and our neighbors. They all make our state more vibrant and they strengthen our economy. And I believe that standing up to protect them is a moral necessity.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for your responses. And just a reminder for those that are just joining, all of you have been muted. Curtis and I met yesterday and went through some questions for candidates for this morning. If you have questions, please put those in the chat and we will try to get to some of your questions a little bit later. But at this time, I will turn it over to Curtis.
Hi, all. So we do have some questions in the chat that we're going to try to get to, but really quickly, we're going to try to cover two questions regarding affordability, which has been a big issue over the last couple months, even before then, heading into the previous presidential election. In a recent coffee and conversation, we had talked specifically about the topic of housing affordability. And one of the things we discussed was a broader reform package that would do a number of things, including less controversial measures like targeting private equity. However, the reason this reform package had failed in the past was largely due to objections from municipal officials regarding state zoning preemption. So my question is separated into kind of three parts here. One, do you support efforts by the legislature to streamline local zoning and building laws? Two, to what extent? And three, how should the legislature work with local officials to ensure these reforms succeed in the future? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Christos. If you need me to restate anything, just go ahead and I'll do my best. Thank you.
Yeah, Curtis, would you mind restating the last two questions? I had the first one down, but I want to get the last two.
Okay. The last two were, to what extent do you support efforts by the legislature to streamline local zoning and building laws? And how should the legislature work with local officials to ensure those reforms succeed in the future?
Thank you. I think as a principle, we can all agree that we should all have access to affordable housing in our communities so that people can support themselves and their families. I serve as the chair of the Egan Advisory Planning Commission, and I have for the last 4 years. I've been on the commission for coming on 8 years. I'm also the local district representative on the Met Council Land Use Advisory Commission. In those roles, I've had the great privilege of working with local officials and being a part of these discussions about affordable housing and seeing how much they care about these issues and how much I care about these issues. Those drew me to both of those commissions. The state proposing to have streamlining local zoning. I know that Egan itself has also pushed back on some of the state initiatives to streamline local zoning. I think it has to be a conversation. I don't think the state can impose it on all local communities. I do think that there has to be a conversation between local communities and the state in partnership. I think that's how we create good policy, and that's how we also create good and strong communities. As I've said, I'm the district representative on the Met Council Land Use Advisory Commission. As a part of the Met Council, they look at, under statute, they're required to look at the development that's happening in the entire region and try to make sure that that development is in line with our goals and that development is sustainable and also looking to affordable housing and increasing the density per acre. I think working through the Met Council with the state and local cities makes a lot of sense to me. And I would support, as a legislator, having regular meetings, developing a commission with local leaders to really get down to the point of how can we help support local communities in creating more zoning districts that are supporting multifamily housing and multi-use development. I think that makes the most sense to me, and that's how we get a thriving, healthy community where people can live and afford to live.
Thanks, Christos. We'll move on to Janine. I did put the question in the chat, but if you need me to restate anything, please let me know.
Okay, zoning. We need to make sure that we can get housing to everyone. I've worked in shelters for years. I've worked with the homeless. Poverty is kind of my thing. And we find so often that when we try to build some type of housing for low-income people, for seniors, or the vet housing that Mount Calvary, which is my church, tried to build and was successful, you had people pushing back going, I don't want people with PTSD in my neighborhood. I nearly fell over. When we tried to put a shelter in that area, the city just said no, but there's no alternative for it. We need state legislation to be able to say, yes, we're going to stop private equity people from being able to buy these homes, especially in low income areas. North Minneapolis was one of them, where there's a group in Texas that wasn't taking care of their property, saying, we don't have to fix your heaters. You can just use space heaters in Minnesota because in Texas you can do that. They need to no longer be able to buy up property and rent them out and let them just go to decay. We need to provide housing where my example has always been dorm rooms. You can put an individual in a dorm room, and I've seen them where they have TVs, a little sink, a little refrigerator, a little thing that everybody needs. And so then as a social service entity, you can work with that person and say, okay, what other services do they need before we move them into other kinds of housing? We can change some of our zoning so that we can build these SROs. SROs have been, they're called single room occupancies. They've been banned from a lot of communities because they became drug infested and run by people who didn't care. If they're run by the county or if they're run by nonprofits working with the county, these SROs will make a lot of sense. We also need to have to allow housing apartments and things where maybe we don't always allow them to be so that people have housing. Housing is number one to get a job. You cannot get a job and function in society if you don't have stable housing. Did I go over?
A little bit. That's okay. Thanks, Janine. And finally, Laura. Again, let me know if you need me to restate the question.
No, I think I'm comfortable with it. Thanks. We absolutely need more homes that people can actually afford. Starter homes, workforce housing, senior housing with mobility focused options. These are all essential in our region. And I hear that all of the time when I'm talking to voters on the phone. The angle that informs my work on this and my perspective is my role on the Burnsville Economic Development Commission over the last nearly 6 years. In Burnsville, the state is giving out LAHA, local affordable housing aid dollars, and Burnsville opted to decide internally as city officials how they wanted to use that funding. Egan's is going to Dakota County, and so I've also been part of conversations about how that is working. But in Burnsville, they wanted to handle the money right in-house and decide how to utilize it. And so my commission was charged with having those conversations, getting the reporting back from the staff on the various ideas and how we saw them as potential to be implemented. And I found it very informative. I'd start by backing smart zoning fixes. Things like allowing ADUs and duplexes can feel really logical in a lot of places, and lowering the barriers to that would be pretty smart. However, when you're looking at new development and redevelopment, I think that it's important to keep the work people-centered. I'm not talking about always folding to the not in my backyard crowd, but there are times that wedging too much density into an area is just not logical. So I advocate for a proportionality in an overall city. And that's where we can trust the city to have the best feedback and insight for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Sorry, the timer went off there. That was my bad.
That's okay. I disregarded it for approximately the same number of seconds that everybody else did. And I think that's okay.
That's okay. These are important issues, so I'm glad we're getting to talk about them. Staying on the topic of affordability, I have one more question. Healthcare. Over the last decade, healthcare prices have continued to rise. The Trump administration's cuts have increased premiums for millions of Americans. I think most of us here would support extending the enhanced ACA subsidies, so I'm not going to ask about that. That's also a federal issue. Minnesota can't do much about that. But I think we also acknowledge it's a band-aid on a broken system. So I have a two-part question again. First, how should Minnesota address the demand side of healthcare, ensuring people have the financial means to actually afford care? And second, how should Minnesota address the supply side of healthcare to reduce costs charged by providers to insurers and consumers, et cetera? And I will put that question in the chat, and I will go to Christos first.
You went to Christos first
Oh,
last
you're
time.
right. I did.
I think it should be Janine next.
I will go. You're right. I will go to Janine. I lost track of. Yeah.
No,
Thank
it's
you,
okay.
T.
That's okay. We're in this
That's okay.
together. We're in this together.
I just want universal health care. That's all I want. In my job, I do medical assistance and the METS team. So if you are elderly, you only get to have health care if you make less than $1,300 a month. If you make more than that as a senior, you have to spend down your money, which means it's kind of like a deductible. And so we are starving our seniors. We're taking their money to pay for their health care, and then I'm turning around and giving them SNAP benefits. The whole system is chaotic. What Minnesota can do for that is we can extend those income guidelines for our seniors so we make them more than $1,300 per month. And I have talked to Liz. Liz didn't realize they were that low. So hopefully we can work together to get that to change. On the supply side, I would like to see if we stopped giving for-profit companies health care, because we've taken Minnesota's healthcare, the medical assistance, we've given it to these private companies where they get to manage them instead of the fee for service that we used to have. I want to see us go back to fee for service where government dollars are going to spend directly to the provider to care for people. Expand Minnesota Care so more people can have Minnesota Care and we don't cut it off at $30,000 for one person. If we do that, we can help it, but we're not going to fix the problem until we get universal health care coverage. And I will fight for that with every dying breath that I have.
Okay, thank you, Janine. And next would be Laura.
Right. Well, I'm probably a little unique on this issue as well, and that's all informed as my history as a business owner and as somebody who works directly with people's money for their small businesses. So what I love about the changes that we saw with the Affordable Care Act was the opportunity to separate healthcare from employment. I think this is a major economic factor because it allows us to go ahead and live economically whatever is the most logical choice for our life without concern that we couldn't possibly get healthcare. And here in Minnesota, even when they rolled back a lot of that when Trump became president the first time, we kept the MNsure program and the public marketplace. And I've seen so many wonderful entrepreneurs be able to leave the corporate job that was stifling them, that wasn't giving them the development growth that they wanted, and step away from that because they knew they could access real healthcare plans independently through the marketplace. I also think that I would love I like the proposals about opening up Minnesota Care so that even if you don't qualify under the income requirements to have it subsidized, you could buy into that coverage because the coverage can be quite good and worth the investment, even if you don't get the subsidies. Thank you.
Okay, and last but not least, Christos.
Uh, Thank you. Again, all Minnesotans deserve to have healthcare coverage. I believe that that is also something that all Americans deserve to have. I, along with Janine, would and totally support universal healthcare coverage if that is a possibility. I lived in Germany. I was a teacher through the program at a local high school. I lived there for 2 years and studied, and I experienced what universal healthcare system looks like. I did not have delays. I know that I did get sick while I was over there, and I received the coverage that I needed to have, and nobody ever worried about going bankrupt to go to the doctor. That's something that we need to ensure here in the United States as well. On the demand side, I think we need to ensure. So I work with again, the most vulnerable children and families that we have in our communities. And we have kids that are not going until they come into the system, not going to the doctors, not getting regular preventative care, and having health issues exacerbate into losing teeth, abscesses, you name the sort of illness, and it's tragic, it's heartbreaking, and we can't let that happen in our community. I think we need to expand preventative care. We need to make sure that Medicaid benefits are available to those that need it, but we need to expand the Medicaid benefits. Similar to what Laura is describing with Minnesota Care, I really like the idea of a buy-in if we can't get to universal health care. I think we need to provide limits on prescription drug prices, and I think we need to promote healthy competition among all of our providers. Thank you.
Thanks, Christos. We moving on from affordability, we do have some questions from the chat. I have shared them with T, and so she is going to go ahead and take over from here.
Oh, let me go and let's see. All right.
Oh, sorry. Did I messaged you privately? Did you? They should be there.
Oh, yes, I see them
Sorry.
now. No, it's okay. So, thanks, Curtis. For the first question, there was a question in the chat. I'm sure many of you get asked this question about the nomination process. So, will you abide by the nomination of the candidate at the convention? I will start with Laura.
It's very simple. I would not be working so stinking hard right now if I did not think that the endorsement by the people who are the most active in our community meant the absolute world in this race. And so that is why I've made myself so available for, gosh, 3, 4 months now to connect with voters at any time in any way, because I want them to be able to know that I have earned their endorsement, and so I wouldn't do that if it weren't so important. And I see no reason not to abide by it. If everybody is abiding, that makes absolutely the most sense. I also philosophically don't agree with unnecessarily burning a lot of our dollars to fight with each other when we really need to make sure that we are out there winning the legislative advantage overall in the state and in the country.
Thank you. Janine, if you can go next.
Yep, I will abide by the nomination, but I also want the person who gets nominated to be able to say they're going to be there every day and not just pop in on occasion. We've had two people here, Ted Daly, Republican, who didn't show up very often and was off and gone, and you couldn't find him. And Ruth Richardson was very difficult to find too at the Capitol. So I want to make sure who gets that nomination says, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be accessible to the people. But yes, I will abide by the nomination.
Thank you. Christos?
Thank you. Yes, my wife and I think we were talking about this as we were deciding about whether to run. We've made nearly every Senate district meeting over the last 10 years. We know many of you, we know many of you so closely, and we care about this district. And as with the other candidates, we care about having a successful campaign and not having fighting going forward. I will abide by the endorsement. I think that we need one united voice. We can only be so lucky in this district to have three people who care to run. Many districts can't even wield a single candidate. But for us, it's because we care about this district. And I care about you. What I've been doing when talking to folks as well, up and down, phone calls and in person, hearing how much you care and you want to make a difference. That's why I'm running. That's why I'm putting so much time and energy, along with my wife and all of those of you with whom I've talked, in order to try to make the change that we hope to see. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question, we'll start with you, Christoph, and then Laura, and then Janine. What steps would you take as a state legislator to protect our community from federal agents? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I know we've talked about this somewhat before as well. I strongly support the Attorney General's opinion that came down that said that local law enforcement can't contract without their board with ICE. I think that that makes a lot of sense, and I would strongly support that as well. I think we need to encourage at all levels of government, from state to local government, that our local law enforcement does not cooperate with ICE. ICE is a separate entity who's coming in to again enforce the federal their federal mandate to try to come after and intimidate and go after our local Minnesotans. And I think to the extent if there are criminals, I think that there can be cooperation with local law enforcement. But those would be people who have been convicted of a crime, not those who they're going after, which are law-abiding residents and neighbors that we have. So we have to show up too. We have to, just like we've been doing, we need rapid response groups. We need to coordinate with our rapid response groups, and we need to monitor and make sure that we track everything that's happening in order to make it as uncomfortable as possible for ICE here that they have to leave. And we need to speak up every day in the press and in our communities, with our neighbors, with our family, and let them know that we care and we are here to stand up for each other. I think that's how we end up getting ICE to leave. And that's what I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Laura.
I am going to take just a moment of liberty here because I feel like I really unequivocally answered my perspective on this with really logical things that the state legislature can do. And so I want to take that moment and just speak to a topic that I'm afraid that 42 minutes in, we aren't even going to get to because of the things that are happening in our world today. And that is education. It's really important to me as a mother. It's important to me as the daughter of a public school teacher. And education funding is a massive problem in this area, in the state. And it's because it hasn't kept pace with the real costs of educating. And so if I were elected, I would again reroute that really pragmatic mind to things that will really make sense. We need to add funding for evidence-based literacy, mental health support, support the whole child, and we need to fix the equation that pretends to be paying for education, because there's no way that every single school district in the entire state is just bad at managing their money. And yet every single school district in the state is in a financial crisis. This is because they are not getting the appropriate funding. And we need to address that at the legislature before it ends up in the courts.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Janine, you have the final statement on this question.
Thank you. How do we protect our agencies from federal? To me, it's quite simple. If somebody has a judicial warrant and they bring that warrant into law enforcement because a judge has said this person needs to be removed, law enforcement should be able to help them because a judge has already said this person has to go. Usually there's some crime that's been committed. If you're just running around trying to figure out who you can pick up, we should have no law enforcement help whatsoever to do with it. That is ICE's problem. They can go and figure it out themselves. I don't like how they're doing it. But on the flip side, we need to help these people to be able to get a legal status. And if we don't help them get a legal status, they live in fear every day. They're exploited by employees. And what we need to do with them is help our federal government help these people get something like Obama did with the Child Act. And we haven't done anything. And I'm not sure why.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for answering some of the questions in the chat. Now we're going to take a direction on fraud. I'm sure all of us know you can't miss it when you turn on the news. Fraud, fraud, fraud. It didn't really start with saving our future, but that's what now has been on a federal spotlight. And now we have the freezing of funds on childcare, behavioral health services, where they're saying there's massive fraud. And now we've heard Tim Wall say, I'll take accountability, but now he is also saying that he doesn't agree with some of the numbers. And so I have a question that I will also put in the chat. And it says Minnesota has recently been in the federal spotlight on a large scale fraud involving public funds. Where do you believe state oversight failed? Do you think it failed? And as an elected official, what would you do to ensure oversight? I will start with Laura on this question, and it is in the chat.
Thank you so much. Not everybody knows this, but my actual job is in accounting. And so areas of fraud are of just a special interest to me because that's how I get most of my clients is somebody robbed them from the inside. And they are looking for somebody that they can trust and a way to really understand their numbers. So I have always had a fascination with this. Here is what I can say about fraud at the state level. To me, to prop up a program, to scale it on a massive scale immediately, like within a week, so that children didn't die. Then to go ahead and keep that running, start to identify problems, start to document problems, start to investigate problems, cut off the funding for the people who are being problems, document those investigations, prosecute, charge them, and go through an entire court system and trial in 5 years. This is this is how it's supposed to work. If we don't put up a program because we're afraid somebody might steal or misuse that program, but the alternative is somebody dying because it doesn't exist, that's not okay with me. And I will tell you from experience, just because somebody hasn't reported any fraud in their situations doesn't mean nobody's stealing their money. It means nobody's reporting it out. It means nobody's investigating, nobody's stopping it, and nobody's telling you. That doesn't mean they don't have fraud.
Thank you. Next, I believe is Janine.
I have way more experience in this area than I want. I came into the office just 2 weeks ago and got a letter or an email from the county attorney's office and the attorney general's office stating one of my clients and one of the companies had been fraudulent. And so I get to work with this in my daily job. How we can prevent this going forward, we need to take all of these programs that we outsourced and we need to bring them back. I've been fighting for this for the last 10 years with the county commissioners. We're inching our way there. We now have disability case managers in-house. What was happening is companies were being privatized, and that started in about the late 90s, early 2000s. And they were doing all the case management, all the oversight, all the billing. And so what you did is you gave them someone's PMI number, which is the medical number that you can bill. And they could bill whatever they wanted because no one really knew what they were doing. And that's how a lot of this fraud happened. If we bring that case management back to the county, you will have an oversight of a social worker or a case manager to say, wait a minute, my client didn't receive all of these services that you're billing for. And I've been fighting for that for years. I'll continue fighting that for years. We also need investigation. It is happening. I'm aware of some of the things that the Attorney General's office is doing, some of the things that the State Department of Human Services is doing, but it's going to be long. It's going to be expensive. And I'm guessing, yeah, probably 5 years before we're going to dig through all of this. I want them prosecuted to the fullest.
Thank you. Christos?
Thank you. I think we should all have confidence that our public dollars are going to those in need and where they're intended to go. Fraud at any level is a serious problem, and it needs to be vigorously rooted out and prevented from happening again. Um, I have been a prosecutor in my life. I currently work in child welfare, and I've also worked at times at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I think that we also need to prosecute vigorously those who have committed fraud. I think we also are in the situation where we don't know the full extent of the fraud. We don't have all of the evidence. We do know, particularly with feeding our starving children, that within that first year, the Walz administration tried to stop that, but was prevented from stopping those payments by the courts. In fact, they were fined for trying to stop those payments, and it's a much more complicated problem than it may appear on the surface. That being said, fraud is particularly a problem with our government services because it's not just public theft. It's an attack on trust in our institutions, and it inhibits our ability to help engage in good, responsive government and service to our citizens. If elected, I fully support our new fraud oversight committee at the legislature. I would request to be a part of that. I support frequent audits, new detecting technology. I also support electronic tracking of services provided and payments made. And I will join Democrats in doing everything we can to prevent fraud in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and ask the next question that we got in the chat. That question was, let me just bring it up. What steps would you take as a legislator? Oh, I have my cat jumping in the way. One sec. What steps would you take as a legislator to protect LGBTQ students in schools? And in particular, what steps would you take to ensure trans and non-binary children have the same rights and opportunities all students deserve in academic, athletic, and extracurricular activity settings? And I will post that question in the chat. And we will start with Janine.
Well, I have a stepson who is part of the LGBTQ community, and he's educated me a lot. And it's been really nice to be able to hear a perspective that I personally don't know anything about. And you have to be able to have everyone be educated. It doesn't matter who you are, what your gender is, what your religion is, you have to have that education. I have fought and fought and fought just to get phonics back in our schools, and thank God we're successful, and now we have it. It doesn't help my kids any, but I'm seeing you have to be in a classroom. You have to be respectful of what somebody wants to be called. You have to also consult with parents to make sure that's okay with a parent, because parents have rights too. But I haven't seen a lot of it in District 196. I haven't heard a lot about it in 196, but I don't have children in that district anymore, and they just have to. I don't know what we need to do legislatively, because somebody's got to bring it to me and say, this is what is happening. And I'm not hearing that these horrible things are happening, or they're not given the same rights. So if someone knows more than I do, please reach out to me. Please tell me what they're experiencing so that we can go forward and make sure that they are treated with dignity and respect like everyone should be.
Oh, thank
Sorry,
you.
short answer, but
No, that's okay. I wasn't quite ready for you. It's okay. That's a great answer. I believe next was Christos.
Thank you. Education lies very close to my heart. My mother was a Minneapolis public school teacher for her entire career. Both of my grandmothers were teachers, one in her church and one in the New York public school system. My sister has a master's in education from the U of M for teaching, and then I was a teacher for a year through the Fulbright program in Germany. I am a strong supporter of social and emotional learning for our students, and that includes our LGBTQ I2S plus students in schools. I think we need to support how students identify what their beliefs are. We need to make sure that they have the opportunity to safely learn, just like every other child in Minnesota. We as a state, similar to what Janine is saying, I would love to meet and talk with anyone with any ideas about legislation. I think what we can do at a minimum is message our support for students in this community and to say that we will stand by them. We are a state that's a sanctuary state in many ways for children like this, going with LGBTQ IA2S plus, and we need to maintain that position. They're under attack everywhere in this country. I work with social services. We work with a lot of children that fit this category. We do everything we can to help support them, and I will do that as a legislator at the Capitol as well. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Christos. And last, we move on to Laura, right? Laura hasn't answered this
Yeah.
question. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Correct. Well, it's undeniable that the LGBTQ community has been targeted by a wave of harmful rhetoric and policy attacks across the country. And I would definitely work to enforce and strengthen our civil rights protections, as well as ensuring that every school has access to really important culturally competent counselors and youth mental health services to support the needs of those children when they're at their schools. And this is an issue that I watch carefully in both of the districts that are represented by our legislative district, both the 191 school district, which I stay active and informed about because of my work in Burnsville on the Economic Development Commission and in the Burnsville Chamber of Commerce, and also the 196 district where my kids attend. And so I definitely keep an eye on all of it across both school districts. Protecting LGBTQ Minnesotans in school or outside of school shouldn't be a culture war debate. And these are just issues of public safety and education integrity. When people have respect and are respected for who they are, they learn better, they can thrive socially, and they succeed long term, which is exactly what we want in our community. So I will always stand with our LGBTQ neighbors through policy that can affirm their dignity, policies that protect their rights, and policies that protect their health care.
Thank you. That music is very interesting, I'll tell you. It does get my attention. So, just based on time, thank you so much for, I mean, we've covered criminal justice and different topics, and I'm sure we didn't address everything. So, as you all stated, have your one-on-ones with everyone, ask additional questions that you may have that you felt like wasn't addressed during this candidate forum, and just meet with each candidate. We are going to close off with hearing closing statements from everyone. If there's anything you felt like we have not addressed and you want to make sure that that was addressed, please include that as part of your closing statement. And we are going, in order, it's going to be Janine, Laura, and Christoph. So thank you all for your time, and I will turn it over to Christoph. I mean, Janine, sorry.
That's okay. We'll get there.
That's right.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here today. I am so thrilled to be able to speak to you. I want you all to know if you have other questions for me, you just want to sit down and chit chat, that I will be at the Burnsville Library next Saturday from 12 to 2. Wanted to do 2 to 4, but couldn't get in that time. So come, we're going to have some coffee. We're going to have some conversations there. We're going to have a good old time. One of the issues that we didn't talk about is veterans. Veterans are really, really, really important to me. My son is getting deployed this month. He's now in the National Guard. He was a Marine. My grandfather was in the military. And when my father was in the military. When my daughter and I did some history, we found out that we had relatives from the Revolutionary War. So we've been around fighting for this country for a very, very long period of time. And we need to give them benefits that they're not getting. One of those benefits, which is dear to me, is SNAP. Our big bad bill just took SNAP benefits away from our veterans. It used to be you didn't have the same restrictions that everyone else did, and they took that away. I want that back. And I know that's federal because SNAP is all federal, but I want that back, and I will fight to get that back. I believe in our educational system. I have a degree in home economics education. Instead of going into our school system, I ended up going into parent education at our county. That's how I started there and have worked there ever since. It is so important that we teach our children to read. We have to get more reading programs in our school. I have a son, my youngest son is dyslexic, and those services really weren't provided. It was just kind of like, well, he'll graduate, he'll move along, he'll be fine. And his math scores were awesome. His reading weren't. We need to work on that in our schools. We need to fully fund our schools. So those are the things that are important and dear to me that we didn't talk about. Anything else you want to know about me, please reach out and I'll answer any questions that you have. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Janine. Next, we'll turn it over to Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with you today and the chance to earn your support in this election. I talked a lot about showing up, about doing the work and protecting people, because campaigns like this don't win on ideas alone. They win through connection, trust, and sustained effort. The work continues so much further than today. One of the most meaningful ways that I connect with voters is through direct phone calls, and many of you know that because you've been on the receiving end of my dialing. Another way is through house calls with Laura. These are small, direct conversations where neighbors can ask questions, share concerns, and be heard. So if you ever would like to talk more, I genuinely welcome you to reach out. If I've earned your support today, I encourage you to connect with me just as soon as possible, because campaigns like this are community efforts, and there are so many ways that you can help, from conversations with your neighbors to showing up at key moments to move this work forward, like the precinct caucuses in less than a month. I also want to close exactly where we began, by naming what is happening right now. The presence of ICE in our cities is making people less safe. And today at noon in Eagan, many of us will be exercising our First Amendment rights, the very rights that Renee Good died trying to exercise. Standing up for democracy, dignity, and due process, it's not optional. This is the work of this moment. I am running for this office because I am steady, practical, compassionate, and brave, the type of person who shows up when it matters the most. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. And I would be honored for the opportunity to represent you in the Minnesota House.
Thank you, Laura. Christoph, I think you have the final say before I turn it over to our chair, Curtis.
Thank you, T, Curtis, and all of you that are here today who care so much about this district. One issue that we did not get to is something that's very core to my office and very core to my work, which is celebrating the diversity in our communities and among those that we serve. It's making people whole. It's having an inclusive culture that represents and reflects the community that we serve. And whether that term falls under DEI or whatever that new term might be, I want to ensure that those principles remain for all of us. As I shared at our campaign event, kickoff event a few weeks ago, we teach our kids every day to stand up for what's right and for what we believe, to be kind to others and to be in service of others. My 9-year-old son, just a week before that, had said to me, "Daddy, do you know what integrity is?" I said, "What?" He said, "Daddy, integrity is when you do the right thing when no one is looking." It is a tough time in our lives, and for so many of you, we have a federal force in our streets, targeting our neighbors, destabilizing our community, and we must still work. We must still go to sports. We must still volunteer. We still have our health challenges, both ours and our families, and tight budgets to manage. And yet we also say to ourselves, if not us, who? And if not now, then when? There will certainly be tough times ahead. We all know that, and we all work together to address those concerns. And we will certainly be exhausted at times too. We know that. But what inspires me to get out of bed in the morning every day is that we can create the community that we hope to see. That together, through relationships and dialogue, we can pull folks in and we can connect. And there are so many people here who care so much about this community and want to make a difference. With kindness, diligence, and a commitment to standing up for what's right for our kids and for our future, and in service to these wonderful communities in Eagan and Burnsville, where I feel very, very lucky to live and that I love, I ask you for your time and energy, and I look forward to talking with you, hearing from you, and I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I will turn it over to Curtis.
Thanks, T, and thanks to our three candidates for coming today. I think we had a really good conversation. There are some comments in the chat to that effect. I would have liked it to last longer, and I know there are some other groups that are looking at maybe doing another candidate forum before the convention, so maybe this won't be the last time we get to hear them in discussion together. Um, But going forward, we will be posting this little chat on YouTube and on our website. I'll post a link to our website in the chat just to make sure everyone has it. I'm going to try to upload that today, assuming the video conversion goes well. Um, Other than that, I think that's all I have to say. We do have a protest going on in Egan today, an anti-ice protest at Pilot Knob and Yankee Doodle at noon, if anyone is interested in attending. And the other thing I would mention is that we have a caucus volunteer Google form for those who are interested in volunteering at caucuses. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. We need people mostly to help with registering caucus goers the night of caucus. So if you're interested, take a look. If you have any questions, you can find my email on the website and send me an email. Let me know what your questions are, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody have a good day. Bye.